Boys, welcome to the GROUPEX Podcast. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks, Tony. Good to be
Thank
here.
you very much.
Mate, easy. Hey, guess what? I want to get one word from both of you, one word each that describes both of you. So, Sammy, can you go first? What's one word that describes you?
Thanks for making me go first.
No, that's all right.
Let's just say passionate. Let's say that.
Passionate. Righto. I like that one. And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm glad I got to go second. Probably determined.
Determined. Righto. Passionate and determined. We're going to see if we can wind these in to this whole thing that's going on here over the next couple of weeks. Now, for those listeners that aren't watching, or even though for those that are watching, this next lot of series that we're going to be doing is about GROUPEX management. So we're going to be delving into the 8 keys that Les Mills have and explaining what they are, giving a little bit more information about them and discussing them at length so we can actually share that information with you guys to help you better understand how to be a GROUPEX manager and how GROUPEX can work better in your centres. Before we get into that, though, and what I'd really like to do is share a little bit about these two blokes that are with me here today, Sammy Winter and Dan Pollard. Guys, who would like to go first? Who's gonna give me a little bit of detail about who you are and what you're all about?
I feel like I went first just then, so it must be your turn, Dan.
Oh, all right. My turn. Okay, fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, thanks, Tony. So I obviously my name's Daniel. I work for Les Mills in the business partnership team. I've been with Les Mills now for about close to 3 years, and I look after the eastern part of Victoria and Tasmania. And when I say look after, I support clubs that either have our programs presently or perhaps are looking to become partners with Les Mills. So we're on the road all the time visiting clubs and sort of catching up with clubs that who have got our programs and you know what's working well, what's not working well, how can things work better, and supporting clubs in that space.
Brilliant. Now, mate, how did you get into the fitness industry? Because my understanding is you're from a little regional town. Is that correct?
I am from a regional town in Bathurst in central west of New South Wales. So I have probably not a unique story, but I've sort of started in a funny way. I'm actually a carpenter by trade, so I ran a carpentry business for about 8 or 9 years before I got involved in the fitness industry. I was involved in the fitness industry just as a participant. I was a regular participant doing cycle classes in my local club for a number of years while I ran my carpentry business, and I got a tap on the shoulder one day from the then owner of the club asking if I wanted to go and do my RPM training. And my initial answer was, why would I do that? I'm quite happy. It really was. I haven't given it any thought. Why would I go and do something like that? I'm doing my own thing, happy just to come participate. And it sort of, I sat and just got home that night and sort of mulled on it a bit. And I thought, well, I'm going there. I enjoy it. Why would I not do that, really? So that's how I started as an RPM instructor about 11 or 12 years ago now.
Okay, so you've actually come from a member side of things and actually been in Clubland. Now, from being an instructor, did you work in Clubland as well for a little bit, as in apart from being an instructor?
Yeah, so that's sort of how I started in the group fitness space. I started as an RPM instructor, then that slowly evolved into being a bit more hands-on with the club, helping out with launch events and things like that. And then I ended up getting an opportunity to go into the group fitness management of that club, and that sort of just spurned ongoing opportunities within that business. Operations manager and bits and pieces sort of over years. So I was very much a hands-on the job, learn by doing kind of a person, not dissimilar to a trade, to be honest with you. That's sort of how I started. So it was a bit of a different route rather than it's probably a common sort of theme with a lot of people who start out in the fitness industry. They come from other industries or other backgrounds before they get involved in the fitness industry. So yeah, it started as a member, became an instructor, and then went into management over the course of 5 or 6 years. Yeah.
Great. Okay. I'm just going to ask you this one question on that, and then we'll move over to you so we can delve into a bit of that as well. Dan, with looking at GROUPEX management from the club where you're in Bathurst to all of the different clubs that you've seen, obviously out in Victoria now, What's the one thing that you're probably noticing from back then when you were GROUPEX manager to what you're sort of seeing out there now? Is there a major difference in what's out there going back to when you were a GROUPEX manager?
Look, I don't think there's a huge difference. I think the clubs that do group fitness well, have a great passionate group of instructors that have a really engaged membership. So I don't think that differs dramatically from one state or one region to another. Probably the big difference I see is obviously regional is a little bit different to metro in terms of instructors and things like that. So I don't think there's been a significant change that I've noticed over the last sort of 10 years in terms of what works well and what doesn't. I think it comes down to the individual club and the belief in the group fitness program that they're running, to be honest with you.
Yeah, mate, I agree with you 100% on that one. Totally. Hey, Sammy, now you and I have chatted before. You've been on the podcast before, and I'm sure that some of our listeners will know you and your background. But for those that are brand new to this, let's just take it as though no one's ever listened apart from me and my mum. Can you give us a bit of background on you, your story, how you got into the industry and how you got to be where you are today?
Thanks, Tony, and hi, Tony's mum. Good to talk to you again. So I've been in the fitness industry since 2009. So when I originally got into it, I was a mechanic, so similar to Dan, the tradies of Les Mills. And I was attending my local gym, and I remember very vividly actually being on a sort of a stairmaster or a stepper, and one of my colleagues from work came up and sort of was encouraging me to come and try a class. And, for me, the instant thought was no thanks, but was persuaded to jump in. And I just remember sitting in the back row of this class, and I remember the instructor, I believe his name was Dane, and I just loved the way that he could create this really cool experience around music and around movement. For me, riding bikes has always been something I've always done. So being able to ride a bike, ride to some good music and help people, that was kind of three things that drew me into teaching classes. So, kind of similar to Dan and a lot of other people, shoulder taps, and the rest is kind of history. So my first program was RPM, it's really led me through this really cool journey into the fitness industry. I met my wife through teaching classes. I moved to Melbourne because of opportunities from originally teaching classes. And, over the last 10 years in Victoria, I've worked through a number of roles for, small independents to, large chain regional management and regional group fitness management. So had quite a few opportunities, which is really cool.
No, I like it. There sounds like both of you have a knowledge from virtually every aspect that there is in a club, from the instructor, from what you'd say, from participant through to instructor, through to management, that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that over the next couple of weeks, as we delve into the 8 keys, you guys are going to be able to share some great experiences as well as knowledge and insights, obviously, that Les Mills share with us as well. So I appreciate that in a big way. One thing I did want to ask both of you today, and I'll start with you, Sam, if you can. What is one of the things you love about the fitness industry?
I think the one thing that I really try and, because I'm also, so apart from being on the business team with Dan, I also work on the trainer presenter team, which is basically training instructors and presenting at workshops, things like that. One of the biggest things that I try to put into my classes, into workshops, into trainings is just trying to help people fall for fitness, because ultimately it is a pretty hard thing to do. I mean, we've all been a beginner and had to go through, the front door of the gym, the front door of the studio. And it can be a really challenging thing for some people. And so for me, it's either help them fall in love with fitness or help them tolerate it. That's kind of the one of the two outcomes that I want to sort of achieve. So that's my favorite thing is taking people who maybe don't like fitness and just helping them enjoy it or love it.
Yep. I like the words you use then, tolerate. That sits with me well. That sits with me really well. Dan, what about you, mate? What's the one thing that shines for you in the fitness industry?
Yeah, I think probably similar to Sam. That connection you get to make with your members, with the people that are coming to your classes, engaging them in group fitness, engage them in into a cycle program, whatever it might be that you're teaching, and then being able to have a chat with them after the class. So it's probably that connection to people. It's not dissimilar to the role we've got with Les Mills, right? We connect with our club partners and have conversations about group fitness and about the club more broadly and how things are going. So probably that ability to connect with members, meet new people that you otherwise wouldn't. I think group fitness is an awesome way to meet new people, to create a little group. Like I've got plenty of examples from clubs I've worked in or been visited where there'd be a group of people after a class go and have coffee together, or go out for lunches and dinners from time to time. Just that sense of community that I think that group fitness and clubs more broadly can create in their businesses, which I think is pretty cool.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast. GROUPEX management specifically. Sammy, I'll come back to you on this one. What is it about GROUPEX management that attracted you to want to do what you do within this space as a business development manager for Les Mills?
Yeah, so just to elaborate, so as in what attracted me to group fitness management originally, or what's...
Yeah. And I suppose what originally and what is it that tickles your fancy about GROUPEX management?
Yeah, I just think that it's I think what attracted me in the first place was obviously being able to move into an area that I'm super passionate about, group exercise, group training, group fitness. Like I said, it's a really great way to get people moving. But the biggest issue that clubs have is 50% of their members leave every year. So for me, being able to manage a group fitness timetable or a group fitness department is a big part of being able to retain that 50% and get more of those people to stay. So that's kind of what gets me excited about it, because it can have such a great impact on clubs and your ability to be really successful as a club.
Yep. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I think something very similar again. I think I love a challenge. I think that determination, that one word, like I'm a very determined person. So again, I love the numbers behind this sort of stuff. So looking at metrics, looking at what's happening with your group fitness department overall, what's working, what's not, what can we make better, and trying to grow that, to expand that to a wider audience, get as many people engaged in that group fitness space as possible. I mean, we know that people who come to group fitness classes come 4 times more frequently than non-group fitness attendees. So it obviously makes sense to get as many people in the club as possible engaged in group fitness. So that's a challenge. It's not. I mean, Sam and I both had the same opinion when we first walked into gyms. So group fitness wasn't our thing. I started in group fitness because I got dragged in there by a mate. Very similar story to Sam. So, how do we engage more people in group fitness? So that was always a big focus of mine. Is how do I get my team to engage more people coming into the group fitness space and trying it. It's not going to be for everyone. It's like any other part of life. Some people will love it, some people will try it and not like it, and some people will never try it. But the more we can get to try it, the bigger that pie, the bigger that share of people doing group fitness, and obviously at the end of the day, the better it is for a business, right? Through that ability to retain their members longer.
Now, the three of us all obviously drink the Kool-Aid with group exercise. Yeah, we people, listeners know my background. They're understanding yours now as well. How important do you think group exercise is for a club owner to understand?
It's in my view, and it's not. It's the single most important part of most businesses. It really is. If you can get 50% of your membership coming to group fitness, there's 50% of your membership that you know is coming frequently. There's 50% or more of your membership that you know isn't going to walk out the door at the end of their 9 to 12 month period. It sounds it sounds, that's obviously the Les Mills guy saying group fitness. Well, that's all group fitness. That's not just Les Mills, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
group fitness, whether it's aqua, whether it's Pilates. Get your members engaged in some form of, social and assisted exercise, but PTing, small group training, all those sort of things. It is simply, in my view, the single most important part of a good fitness offering.
Sammy, are you seeing more and more clubs taking note of what is happening in their group exercise space compared to, say, let's go back 10 years ago?
I think so, because it is quite a different. I mean, all the basic stuff is the same as it always has been. Attracting members to clubs, getting your members to sign on the dotted line, getting them to stay for as long as possible. All the basics are the same. It's just essentially adapting those methods to suit the way that people currently spend their money and make purchase decisions and things like that. So I think there has been a bit of a shift in the way we do things. I do think a lot of clubs still are quite aware of what happens within the group fitness department, but sometimes for us, it's just helping them see it from a different angle so that they can make better decisions about the way that they run their club. So it's not necessarily that they're not looking at it. It's just sometimes there's if you turn your head this way and look at it from this angle, you'll actually see something different.
I like that analogy. Nice one.
Yeah.
Nice one. Dan, what do you think the number one challenge is that clubs are facing today within their group exercise department?
Yeah, look, I think certainly the last couple of years, and I think anyone listening to this most people will be in furious agreement. Instructors have always been a bit of a challenge in the last couple of years, to be honest. And that's not Les Mills specific instructors. Like, I talk to clubs all the time. There's a shortage of front of house staff. There's a shortage of childcare staff. All those sort of things. So I think instructor challenges have been difficult in the last couple of years. I think particularly coming out of the last couple of years through the pandemic and stuff like that, saw a few people move into other employment and perhaps leave the fitness industry. So I think that's a challenge. But I think again the clubs that I'm talking to that are doing a really good job of building their group fitness team or their team overall, their fitness team or their front of house team are the ones that have got a really engaged group of people. They feel part of a team as opposed to someone that just comes in and does the work and leaves. So they feel engaged and part of a bigger team pushing towards a bigger goal. And I think that's a really important consideration when you're managing a team, that you've got everyone on board. They're working toward a common goal, whatever that might be, whether it's engaging more members or teaching the best group fitness class or whatever it might be. So I think that's been a challenge. I feel like there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel in that space as well. With the conversation I have with the clubs I speak to, is that there's a lot of positive green shoots on new instructors and a lot of new instructors coming through our training and other training now to replace some of the guys that have left the industry for different reasons.
Yep.
But that's probably the single biggest challenge perhaps in the last couple of years that I've sort of spoken to clubs about.
Yep. Is it a lack of new, when you say new instructors, and I ask this only to try and grasp a bit of more of understanding so when we talk about it later on, is it new instructors that are younger? So we're talking the I don't even know what generation it is anymore. I'm feeling that bloody old when I say that, but I'm talking 18 to say 22, 23-year-olds. Is that the demographic that are starting to come in now as instructors, or is it still that 25 plus or the older age group that we're seeing?
Look, I think it varies. I think if you talk, and Sam would be able to talk probably even more to this, given that he trains a lot of these new guys coming through. So Sam would have a pretty good idea on the makeup of the age demographic. We want everyone involved. There's no reason. It's just like being a participant, right? You can be a participant at 16 or 18, whatever your gym policy is, and all the way through to 80. There's really no reason why. I mean, I was fairly late to start in group fitness. I was in my late 20s, which when I first started in the group fitness space, there's people that have started a lot later than that in later life. And then obviously we'd love to see another group of younger people coming through, which is some of our newer programs, which to be honest, is targeting those guys, is encouraging those guys to come in. I've been the program behind me, Les Mills Shapes, is a perfect example of a program that, is unashamedly targeting a younger group, millennials and Gen Zs, to either come in and participate in the group fitness space and ideally become group fitness instructors too. So Sam probably will be able to give even more insight into who he sees in his module training as well.
Sammy, what age bracket are you seeing in some of the trainings that you've had in the last couple of months?
Still quite a variety of instructors across the different age groups. I think there's the oldest, probably, you've got people in their 60s who are really keen for the class, which is really cool. And then I'm down to probably had some around the 18-year-old mark. So it's still quite a variety. I think probably this is probably my opinion from observation more than anything, is over that period that when we look back at it now, it seems like a pretty weird thing to have happened. But over the COVID sort of period, we had restrictions to trade, gyms couldn't open. Some gyms weren't recruiting because of the fact that they didn't know how they could get those people on board and things like that. I think because of that, you could probably say that pretty fairly it was a 2-year period, particularly in Victoria. I mean, Dan and I were both in Vic over that time. So what kind of happened is, I guess, technology sped up really quick. So it probably moved sort of 3 years into the future, faster than it would have if that hadn't have happened, because it had to. There was no kind of choice. Where the recruitment side kind of slowed down a little bit. So I think what we're seeing now is just that little bit of a pain point here in this moment. But all it's going to take is for clubs and us to all just be proactive in who's going to be that next generation of instructor, who's going to take over. Like for me, I'm in my sort of mid to late 30s. Like for me, it's probably about legacy a little bit now too. Like I don't want to, if I leave a club for members to not want to train anymore, not have an option for an instructor. Like I want to think about now who are those next instructors. So I hope that answers your question, but that's sort of the lens that I look through things at the moment is recruitment. Yeah. It can be a challenge. However, if you're proactive and you're always be recruiting, if you're always recruiting, then you've always kind of got that little pipeline of talent.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I think that'll lead us into some of the keys that we will go through, or plays, whatever. What are they called these days? They're not keys. We talked about this the other day, are they? They're not.
Key
back
plays.
In my time, yeah,
Key
back in the old days, yeah, we used to call them the 8 keys, and now it's the 8 plays, yeah.
8 key plays, yeah. Yep. We've some of the old language, some new language.
Yep. No, good. I've got to get my head around this over the next couple of weeks when we go through and chat all about it.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast.
We know that GROUPEX attendance is probably the biggest key factor that clubs should be looking at. And years ago, when I was doing the role that you guys are doing with Les Mills, it was always a big challenge. You were talking to clubs saying, "Hey guys, you must be writing it down, looking at keeping track of it all." Are clubs keeping track of attendance these days, or are we still finding that they're not really looking at it to make those proper business decisions?
I think the ones that are running successful group fitness departments are looking at attendance regularly. Yep, would be the short answer to that. There's obviously different systems that different clubs have, but I would say the majority of the clubs I talk to have a way of recording their group fitness. They know it's important. I mean, it's the old adage that you can't make decisions on something you're not measuring, right? So if you don't know what's happening in your group fitness department and you're relying on gut feeling or a vibe or something, you're probably not able to make educated decisions on the next step or the next program to add or anything like that. So the short answer would be yes, it's super important. I think it's critical, obviously, and I would say the majority of clubs do it quite well.
Yep.
But it's not to say there's not room for improvement. Of course, there's always stuff we can learn.
Yeah. Sammy, are you finding the same thing in your travels that you've done around the country?
Yeah, I think clubs are measuring it, but in sort of slightly different ways. It does depend, I think, on the KPIs that are set by the club as to the angle they look at it. So, for example, if you were looking at just mainly your cost per head, that is really based on attendance. So you would need to know, your attendance figures to be able to do that. If it's the percentage of your swipes that are going to group fitness, again, the same thing, or group exercise, it's the same thing, right? So I think a lot of clubs are. It's just, when we have these conversations, the first thing that I would generally ask is what sort of things do you mainly look at? So then we can have a conversation around attendance and again, maybe look at it from a different angle as well. So that, because we know that, say, for example, the amount of people that attend classes per week is going to influence what that cost per head number looks like. So by putting into play things that will help grow your percentage of your visitation uptake, that's going to drop your cost per head organically. So sometimes it's just about finding different ways to look at it so that you can, again, move forward and be successful as a business.
Yeah. Yep. Now, this is probably going to be a strange question, which may throw you both. And I don't mean it to throw you both. And I'm not meaning to put you on the spot when I ask this question. Are GroupEX managers these days doing what the role should be, or are they just doing a certain part of that role, i.e. finding covers, updating a timetable, doing pays, or are they actually doing things like, assessing their instructors, doing proper launches, making sure the studio is okay and all that kind of stuff? I suppose it'll come down to individual sites doing individual things and what that GroupEX manager is actually being paid to do. But can either of you give us a little bit on what you're seeing out there in GroupEX management at the moment?
I think there's a few different factors that sort of pay into what exactly a group fitness manager does. Obviously, experience is one thing. So someone with who's just getting started on their journey, like anything, the main focus is learning the systems and, putting in the numbers and things like that, maybe finding covers. So it does really depend on the experience of the GFM, what the club's looking for and that sort of thing. So you do see sort of a variety of different leadership styles throughout the clubs that I visit. Could there be some initiatives that GFMs could put into place? I mean, absolutely, there's always room to grow, right? So, for example, if a club is having trouble with the quality of their classes, that's a good opportunity for them to then go in and do assessments or potentially look at expanding their instructor base so they can bring more instructors on to deliver, different things to different people, because we know that our members, they don't just come for the way that I teach or the way that Dan teaches or the way that Tony teaches. They want to come for different reasons. So, I hope that sort of answers what you're after. But, for me, it's because there is such a variety of factors that come into play. It is hard to go, you're doing it exactly right, because it's like any leadership is a journey, right? It's not sort of linear and A to B.
Yep. Dan, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, look, I think the single biggest reason some GFMs aren't able to get to all the things that they should be getting to is simply they don't have enough time. A lot of clubs I speak to, their GFMs are very, very part-time. We're talking 6-8 hours a week, which is frankly, it's not enough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't matter how big or small your group fitness department is. 6 hours or 8 hours a week is really just enough time to sort your covers, do your logistics stuff each week, do payroll, all the administrative stuff that really could be farmed out to somewhere else, to be honest with you. So again, the clubs that have great systems in place are clubs that understand the value of a GFM requiring a reasonable number of hours. And again, I'm not going to say how many hours that should be, because it's so dependent on, so many other factors, the size of the club, the budget of the club, number of classes, number of instructors, all those things. But I think one thing that the club owners and managers should be taking out of this conversation today is, does your GFM realistically have enough hours to do all the things that you expect of them? And also, what is it that you're measuring those guys on? Because that's another consideration into how many hours does this GFM need, is how many KPIs, what are the KPIs, what are the metrics that they're being assessed on, and do they have realistically enough time in the week to to meet those KPIs. So that would be the biggest single challenge that I think some clubs can have, or some GFMs can have, is simply, a lack of hours to do the role and do all the things that we know group fitness managers should be doing to create a really successful department.
Now, I this is my personal throw on the whole GROUPEX manager versus other roles within the gym environment. I believe that the GROUPEX manager's role is more important than a sales commission or sales consultant's role. I don't know how you guys feel about that, coming from working in different areas of the gyms and that kind of stuff. But to me, if a GROUPEX manager is doing their job properly and that department is firing on all cylinders, you could probably get rid of one of your sales consultants. And I say that because we know, as we'd said earlier on, retention is the biggest thing that we need to look at in the industry. And if we're doing it right and group exercise is functioning right, that's your biggest retention tool you've got straight there. So instead of trying to fill the bucket, how about we fill the holes in the bucket to make sure that it's all going to be okay? So I would like to say to a lot of clubs out there that are listening, I'm just going to throw this out there and try this, clubs. Get rid of a consultant for a year. Put that money that you spend on that consultant into group exercise. Yeah, you're still going to be spending it anyway, but throw it onto an area of retention in your club and see what actually happens. Now, I don't mean go and pay everybody more money. And that's not what I'm trying to say. Yes, well, we know that GROUPEX instructors are still the most underpaid people in the universe, and GROUPEX managers probably fall into that category as well. Let's throw some of that money into your GROUPEX department to see what can be done a little bit better. I think that clubs will probably get more out of that than they will putting on one or two more sales consultants just to try and get members to sign up, which, as we said from the beginning, we know they're going to lose 50% of those people in a year's time anyway. What do you guys think of that when I've said that? How does that make you feel? And I suppose, do you agree or disagree?
I think
I'll go, Dan.
Oh, no, you're right.
You go, Dan. Oh, I was just going to say, I think I'm going to just mute myself.
Dear.
I'll ask you then, Dan. Dan, go for it. You give me a bit of info on what you think when I've said that. How does it make you feel? And I suppose, do you agree or do you disagree?
Oh, look, I think there's absolutely, if you truly believe in your group fitness product that you're offering, and you understand the value that group fitness brings to your business, you will understand the value in getting the best staff you can have in that department to have it firing on all cylinders. So whilst I wouldn't necessarily go into a club and suggest they start sacking sales people, I certainly don't disagree with the concept that GFMs need to be, and GFIs for that matter, need to be well remunerated for what they're doing, because they do bring in a large percentage of the revenue into a business, and they need to have, as I've said, in the GFM space, they need to have enough hours in the day. So again, look, I think it comes back to what is your expectation of that department? Where is it at? Where do you want it to be in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years' time, in terms of attendance and volume? Has your group fitness manager and your team got enough hours realistically to grow the business, that part of the business, in the way that you want it to grow? And if the answer is no, is as simple: you've got to give your GFM or your staff more hours in the day, more time in a week to potentially a bigger budget to drive that growth, because you're not going to, it's a chicken and egg thing sometimes. I've talked to a lot of clubs about, they want to cut some costs, or that, budget bottom line's looking a bit skinny, or, things are a challenge. You don't grow your business by cutting. That is just the reality, right? So, it is a little bit chicken and egg in that, I will propose, well, why don't we look at some new programming, get some more people in, keep them retained in that group fitness space, get more people engaged in that space, rather than cutting what's already there to then appeal to an even smaller group of people. So I think what you've said is 100% right. If you've got clear goals and those goals involve growth of your departments, then you need your department heads and teams around that need the budget and the space and and the time to grow.
Sammy, you've taken yourself off mute.
I think just building off what Dan said. So, if you think about, if we go back to the percentage of your swipes or your attendance per week that is to group fitness, most clubs will sit between sort of 15 to the best clubs sit at sort of 50%. Let's just use something in the middle, say 30%, right? So let's say 30% of your members every week, 30% of your visits every week are to group fitness. That realistically means that 30% of your weekly revenue is being generated by these group fitness classes. So I think that's really important to step back and think about. If your club has 30% of the visits attending group fitness, that means realistically 30% of your revenue is coming from group fitness. So if you compare that to the actual time and effort that you spend on that 30% of your revenue, is it enough to support it, to maintain it, to grow it? Because the more people that are training in an assisted situation, whether that's PT, group fitness, group training, virtual classes, all of those things, did I say personal training? That's important too. All that stuff adds up to less people leaving and more people staying.
Join us every Sunday morning from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. for GROUPEX Radio with me, Tony Z. Each week we bring you a fresh mix of remixes and extended versions, along with discussions that cover all aspects of group exercise, from the latest trends and techniques to personal anecdotes, ensuring a diverse range of perspectives, expertise and personalities. So grab your favourite beverage, turn up the volume and let GROUPEX Radio be your ultimate companion on a Sunday morning. You touched on something there that I think is so vital that I still believe a lot of clubs don't understand. Group exercise isn't a cost center. Group exercise is your biggest revenue tool, your biggest revenue stream, the biggest thing you've got in your club, because look at that square meterage and look at how many people you're servicing. Yeah, Sammy, you touched on it there. It's so... I was at an event last year, and I won't say where it was or which club it was because I don't want to embarrass people, but there was an event on last year in Sydney. And sitting there and at this event, I heard someone turn around and say, well, if Group X doesn't work, we get rid of it. Now, I just shook my head and just sat there and I just went, holy crap, why would you get rid of potentially 30% of your revenue stream just like that and go, nah, that's it, I don't want to do it. Now, obviously, they're not getting 30% yet, which is why they've decided to get rid of it. But if you look at what you're doing in that space, you've already got that space there. Why wouldn't you look on ways to actually invest properly with people, with programs, with whatever it may be, sit down and actually have a look at it and go, wow, if Les Mills are saying, or if the industry is saying we can get, 30 to 50% of our members sorted and taken care of by doing group exercise, and we know that they're going to be staying longer than those that don't get engaged, that just sit around and do whatever they're going to do on their own, why wouldn't you want to do it?
Yeah.
I can't see a gym turning around going, oh no, well, we'll get rid of that room over there and that room over there and we'll just put in a whole lot more treadmills because, yep, that'll work. I was almost going to put my thumbs up then, boys. Oh, that'll work. Yeah, we'll get that happening. It's for those of you listening, every time I put my thumbs up, my screen blanks and does something weird. So I'm definitely going to be talking over these chats. But I don't understand why clubs would want to get rid of group exercise. To me, that just completely baffles me.
Well, even like
I think that's
stats, sorry, mate. I'll pause 3, 2.
No, you go.
Even URSA stats. So a lot of our insights don't just come from Les Mills research. It actually comes from external bodies like URSA. So quite a big organization in the US. They talk about the amount of times a member visits versus the amount of time they stay. So they found in research they did not. I think the Nielsen research, wasn't it, Dan? So they found that if a member so most members will train maybe an average of 1.38 times per week, I think they worked it out to be. And if you can move them from that to just 2 visits per week, so it's barely even a visit per week, they'll actually stay 2 to 5 times longer. So group fitness can have or Group X can have a really big influence on getting that person to come that extra time. So they could just do a PT session with their favorite trainer and a group fitness class, get a really great experience from both of those and stay 2 to 5 times longer. So why wouldn't you invest in that, that ability to have such an influence over a mass amount of people in one go?
And I'm going to steal something from Sam that he says quite a bit, and I really like it. No one has a favourite treadmill, right? Like no one goes in there and says, "Oh, that's my favourite treadmill." But they do have a favourite class, or they do have a favourite instructor, and that's what group fitness can bring, right? In terms of square meterage, if you just want to drill down into the profit side of things, it's on a square meter basis, group fitness is the single biggest profit centre in your club. So, as Sam said, if you've got 30%, 40% of your membership coming to group fitness, there's a line item. There's your profit line item for group fitness. It's very easy, and I've likened it a little bit to creches and things like that, having looked at P&Ls and stuff in the past in previous roles. And it's easy to look at something on a spreadsheet and say that's costing me that much. Childcare is a little bit similar. Group fitness can be like that, right? Because there's a budget line item that X number of dollars in license fees, this much in labour, etc. But it's actually not that hard to quantify the profit side of that. What's your attendance? What is as a percentage of your overall membership coming to a group fitness class each week? And if you don't have those classes, those people are going. Yeah. Right, they're going down the road to the next centre that has their favourite RPM class or their favourite aqua class or whatever it might be. So it's actually not that hard to look at it. How does it compare profit and loss? Because that if you're recording your numbers, which is what we talked about before, if you've got a good methodology for recording your numbers, it's actually really easy to see, okay, it costs me this much, but it makes this much over here. I very, very rarely have I seen a situation, I've never seen a situation where group fitness is actually costing club money. Yep. It costs money, but it's never costing more than the cost of not having that service.
A different question that's just popped into my head here. I want to throw at you guys. If we're all doing the same, are we doing anything different? Now, when I say that, I mean, if every single club out there is running Les Mills, what's the point of difference? And I don't mean that to be cheeky and try and throw you both under the bus when I say that, but there's always been something in my mind that, okay, every single club out there, and in Australia, where we are very much Les Mills dominant in our clubs that are out there. What's the point of difference? What is a club's point of difference? I mean, they all say that, it's our community. Community is not a USP, because if everyone's saying their community is your unique selling point, then the unique selling point is not community. Yeah. What do you guys see as if we're all doing the same thing, how can we do it different?
Well, I think it comes down to doing it better, to be honest with you. I think that can be the point of difference. I mean, I've heard people say and use it as a criticism in the past that Les Mills is a cookie cutter type of program, and it is, but that's why it works. Yeah. It works because it is that. If I go to Sam's class and Sam's RPM class, it's going to be a similar experience to what if I went to your RPM class, Tony. But the difference is
it won't.
maybe not. But the individual personalities bring out differences in the same program, right? So, I mean, there was a really interesting stat come out of the Global Fitness Report that was done by Les Mills in 2021 at the back end of the COVID period. I hate using that word, but the back end of the pandemic period. And it showed that the number one reason that members come to a group fitness class or come to the gym to do a group fitness class is because of the instructor. So that can be the unique selling point. That can be the difference straight away, that, not all programming is created equal and not all instructors are created equal. It's where we can get a situation where more clubs focusing on creating great experiences every time they come to the gym. I won't steal Sam's thunder on the great experience bit, but it is so important that that you create that experience with your participants, and not just as a one-off, but every time they come to the club, every time they come and do a class or whatever it is that they're doing in the gym that day.
Yeah. No, I think it's the boys. What I'm going to say straight up, I appreciate you guys coming on the chat for a chat with me today to delve into this a little bit. There is a hell of a lot we're going to be delving into over the next coming weeks. For those people that are listening and not watching, guys, over the next few weeks, as I said earlier on, we'll be discussing the key plays that Les Mills run through. We're not going to break it down and do one each week because I think being here for 8 weeks, as much as I'd love you all to be engaged and sitting here, I don't want you to get bored. And I don't mean bored as oh God, these guys are talking about that again. I want to make sure that the information that we deliver is going to be key, on point, so that everyone that's listening is able to take some stuff away. But not only that, then to be able to go and do the online GFM seminar that Les Mills offers as well. This is more of let's give you a bit of an overview. But if you really want nuts and bolts, that's what that course, that's what that seminar online thing is all about. But guys, we will come back and we will do a little bit more shortly. But I just want to say to both of you, thank you so much for today and coming in, having a chat. And for those that are listening and watching, watch out, because over the next couple of weeks, we've got some big topics and some punches we're going to be throwing around.